Hello, dear listener. How are you tonight? I hope you're doing okay. Maybe you're listening to this while trying to fall asleep. Maybe during a late night drive. Or maybe you just needed a quiet voice in the background for a little while. And before we begin, if you haven't listened to episode 1 yet, I'd honestly recommend starting there first. This series slowly builds on emotions, conversations, misunderstandings, and the kinds of stories people carry around for years without ever fully talking about them. Last episode, we listened to a woman's story, a story about silence, mixed signals, late conversations, and trying to understand why some people suddenly return to our lives after disappearing from them. But tonight, the story feels a little different. This time, the one speaking is a man, and whether what he experienced counts as betrayal or simply the slow feeling of being emotionally replaced before the relationship officially ended, I'll let you decide that for yourself. Because sometimes people leave emotionally long before they leave physically. And sometimes a message can say more than a touch ever could. This is A Late Night Conversation, Episode 2. And before we start, I just want to say something small. If you enjoy this series, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. Honestly, sometimes reading your stories and thoughts in the comments feels even more real than the videos themselves. And if you ever want to share your own story with me, you can always reach me through the email address in the channel bio. Maybe one night, the story we talk about here will be yours. And for this episode, you don't have to pick a side. You might think the woman was right. You might think the man was right. Or maybe you'll feel like both of them slowly hurt each other without even realizing it. Because real life rarely gives us clear villains. Sometimes it's just two people misunderstanding each other, failing to communicate honestly, and quietly drifting apart while pretending everything is still okay. I'll still share my own thoughts throughout the story. I'll talk about why certain behaviors can feel hurtful and why some actions slowly destroy trust even before the relationship officially ends. But at the end of the day, the final opinion is yours, because I'm pretty sure almost all of us have lived through at least one version of this story.
I had been in a relationship for almost 3 years. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but I thought it was real. At least that's how it felt to me. When you spend that much time with someone, you start thinking you truly know them. You know what hurts them, what makes them smile, what kind of music they listen to, even the way they wake up in the middle of the night. And after a while, you begin to believe something very simple. Okay, we've become part of each other's lives now. At least, that's what I believed. Things had been changing between us lately, though. I could feel it. We weren't talking the same way anymore. Sometimes while she was telling me something, I realized I wasn't really listening. And when she looked at me, it felt like her mind was somewhere else. But in long relationships, you convince yourself that these things happen. You don't immediately assume everything is falling apart. One night we were sitting at home together. She had gone to take a shower. Her phone was lying on the bed. And normally, I'm not the kind of person who checks someone's phone. I've honestly never been that guy. But suddenly, her screen lit up, and I saw a name. A man's name. The last message said, "Talking to you today really made me feel better." Now, from the outside, maybe that sounds completely harmless. Maybe it really was harmless. I don't know. But sometimes something inside you just clicks into place in a single second. Because it wasn't only the message, it was the feeling I had the moment I saw it. Suddenly, the last few months started replaying in my head. The late replies, the emotional distance that never really made sense, her always being tired, the ways she sometimes felt far away, even while touching me. And for the first time, I thought to myself, was I alone in this relationship the entire time? My entire mood changed in a single second. But the strange thing is, what I felt in that moment wasn't only jealousy, it felt like a suspicion that had been quietly growing inside me for months, had suddenly taken a real shape. I put the phone back exactly where it was, and for a moment, I honestly didn't know if I should say anything at all. Maybe it really was innocent. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I had simply caught the wrong moment. But that feeling inside me wouldn't go away. A few minutes later, she walked out of the bathroom. Her hair was still wet. She looked at me for 2 seconds and immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. "Is something wrong? You look upset." And honestly, I stayed silent for a few seconds because I genuinely didn't know if I wanted to have that conversation. Then I finally said, "I saw a message on your phone, and I'm not even sure if I want to talk about it." And I remember this part very clearly. Her entire expression changed instantly. Someone who looked completely relaxed a second ago suddenly became tense. And before I even explained what I saw, she immediately became defensive. That was the moment I truly got angry. Because if I'm being honest, I expected her to say something like, "What message? What happened? Why would you think that?" But instead, she immediately said, "What are you talking about? What cheating? Don't be ridiculous." And I don't know. Sometimes a person's first reaction tells you everything. So I looked at her and asked directly, "Are you cheating on me?" She answered immediately, "Of course not. What kind of question is that?" But the moment I mentioned the message, the entire conversation shifted. "You were looking through my phone?" And that made me even angrier, because I was trying to talk about betrayal, while she was making me feel guilty instead. "Is that really what we're talking about right now?" I said. "I just saw another man texting you, and your problem is that I saw the message." My voice started getting louder, so did hers. And suddenly we were both yelling. But the more she yelled, the angrier I became, because she still wasn't really explaining anything. It felt like she was trying to protect herself, not calm me down. At some point, I grabbed my jacket. I genuinely wanted to leave, but the second I walked toward the door, she came after me and grabbed my arm. "Please wait," she said. "Don't go." Then she hugged me and started crying. "You can't leave me." And somehow, that was the worst part, because underneath all my anger, I still loved her, and realizing that made everything hurt even more. So I sat back down. "Okay," I said, "then explain it to me." For a while, she just cried. Then finally she said, "I met him online. We never met in person. Nothing physical ever happened. We were just talking." But the next thing she said hurt even more. "I wasn't happy with you anymore." And then she said, "I was talking to him about our relationship." I remember staring at her in complete shock. "You talked about us? With another man?" And that's when she started blaming me, because you stopped paying attention to me. You were always working. You never had time for me anymore. You stopped listening to me. I felt alone. And honestly, some of the things she said weren't completely false. Maybe I really had become distant. Maybe I wasn't nurturing the relationship the same way anymore, but there was still one sentence repeating over and over inside my head. That still doesn't justify this. Because feeling lonely is one thing. Building an emotional connection with someone else is another, and I told her exactly that. "This is cheating," I said. "You can't turn this into something normal." Then I asked her How would you feel if I did the same thing to you? And once again, she started yelling, "This happened because of you. I never wanted this." It felt like she couldn't fully take responsibility for what she had done. We argued for a while longer, but at some point, we stopped truly hearing each other. Eventually, I left the apartment, and I walked around the city for hours that night, but honestly, the worst part is that I still loved her. And that's why my mind kept repeating the same questions over and over again. Did I really neglect her? Had the relationship already ended long before this? Was I just too blind to see it? Is something like this forgivable? Or were we just trying to hold on to something that had already died? And honestly, I still don't know the answer. So now I'm asking you, what would you do? Would you call her? Would you try to fix things? Would you forgive something like this? Or do some relationships end long before the betrayal finally appears?
Well, this is a really painful story because what happened here isn't just about a message. The real issue is the quiet destruction of trust. And honestly, I can't fully see either side as the villain in this story because sometimes relationships slowly die. People continue living in the same space while emotionally drifting further and further away from each other. And yes, the woman's loneliness may have been real. Maybe she truly felt neglected. Maybe she genuinely felt unheard. But personally, this is where I stand. Feeling emotionally unfulfilled in a relationship does not justify building emotional intimacy with someone else. Because some people think cheating only becomes real when something physical happens. But in my opinion, going to another person with your relationship problems, creating emotional safety there, and slowly searching for comfort outside your relationship is also a form of betrayal. And sometimes it hurts even more than physical cheating because physical mistakes can happen in a single moment, but emotional attachment is built slowly, consciously. And I think the thing that hurt the man most in this story wasn't just the possibility that she betrayed him. It was the feeling that emotionally she had already stopped choosing him. And that's an incredibly painful thing to realize. But there's another truth in this story, too. Relationships rarely collapse because of one single moment. When two people slowly stop hearing each other, these kinds of emotional fractures begin to appear. So I can't sit here and simply say, you should definitely leave, or you should definitely forgive her. Because some couples survive things like this and somehow rebuild something even stronger, while others never fully recover the feeling of trust again. But I will say this, if someone in a relationship has already started searching for emotional connection, attention, or validation somewhere else, then a serious emotional disconnect has already begun. And sometimes people emotionally leave relationships long before they officially end them. Honestly, I think that was the saddest part of this story. Two people still loving each other, but no longer feeling emotionally safe with one another. And if I'm being completely honest, sometimes love alone is not enough to save a relationship. Anyway, I really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this counts as cheating? Would you forgive something like this? Or do you think emotional betrayal can sometimes hurt even more than physical betrayal? Thank you for spending part of your night here with me, and if this conversation stayed with you for a while, maybe that means there was something in it you needed to hear. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, please take care of yourselves. Good night.